Gearing up at level 30, part 2. Gear, guns and mod tips. My first video was about how to get gear, any gear. This video is about your journey from gear level 0 to 256, how to do it faster by improving your gear as you go, as well as giving you a landing pad for when you get to 256, so that when you arrive you're in semi-decent shape with a basic build. The principle is a decent all-round firearms build with good survivability and good DPS, and I'm going to be assuming that you are going to be playing solo. For this reason, I would actually suggest that you run a turret and the biggest self-heal you've got. I would strongly suggest the active sensor turret and the overdose. I say that just because you want to be doing a lot of killing, you don't want a lot of downtime. The heal will give you the absolute maximum self-heal, and I find when I'm playing solo the turret is very useful because effectively it's like having a squad buddy. You throw it off to the side of a fight and effectively you're now flanking the enemy. Sometimes you can get locked down with the enemy behind cover, and that's a good way to get them shot in the flank. And I can't seem to do anything out here without some chappie coming over trying to give me a crap gun. Thank you for that nonsense weapon. I'll just get rid of that. What way is begging for food and giving out M1911s? I don't know. And now I think he's having a piss by that ambulance. Anyway, where were we? Okay, general principle. Your target is going to be keeping these proportions between these. You want 5 parts firearms to 6 parts stamina, and you're going to ignore electronics. So you just keep those proportions. As you start you'll be a lot lower, but you keep that ratio of 5 to 6 as you go up, always keeping stamina slightly higher. Once you cap 5k firearms, you're golden. So this should give you a build where you're going to have respectable DPS, but you're not going to fall over dead when you get hit, and that's very important. So you're going to work towards a 4-set bonus of a gear set you like. The other 2 pieces of gear, whatever they may be here, it'll be the luck of the draw which items you get for which slots, but you want a 4-set bonus of something you like, and either a 2-set bonus of something else, or 2 high-end items. This will all be determined by what you actually find on the street. But as a rough guide, I brought along a couple of examples. Best of the Nomad. That will drop a lot as you're gearing up. That will drop a lot. This is a good go-to set. 15% health on kill is good. Nomad's Resolve is good. Part of the Nomad is good as well. But particularly the 3-set bonus, a constant trickle of health just means if you get into trouble in a fight, you can duck down and you can basically get all of your health back surprisingly quickly. Another set that's pretty good is Strikers. Not so much for the stability, but the 10% enemy armor damage is great. The 4-set bonus is okay. Similarly, Firecrest. It's quite a lot of fun. The 2-set bonus is trash, I think, but the 3 and the 4-set bonus just, it lets you unleash your inner pyromaniac. And lastly, the defense set. The 2-set bonus on that is solid. I don't run with a ballistic shield build at the moment, but 15% protection from elites, you can't go wrong. Good stats to look for on your gear are, in order, armor. If you have any bit of gear that has added armor, that's fantastic. After that, I would go for plus weapon damage on the type of weapon that you prefer, and after that, XP. I know that might seem like a weird one, but obviously you want to maximize the amount of loot you're getting. XP gives you more field proficiency caches, so job done. you want to be keeping an eye out for reasonable guns, and the perks on them make a big difference. Before I forget, I'll just say, when you're comparing guns, actually get your calculator out and work out the damage times the RPM. Sometimes the DPS reading on a weapon can be very, very dodgy and very inaccurate. And sometimes you'll find you'll have two weapons, two AK-47 say, and one of them's got much higher DPS. But when you actually compare the damage times the RPM, you'll find to your surprise that the other one actually has more base damage, and the DPS is being calculated off the perks. So it's worth actually looking at the base damage, especially, you know, because the perks may not necessarily translate into real DPS. As for those perks, there are three damage based perks which you can't go wrong with. One is Ferocious. Damage against elite and named enemies increased by 10%. They're the tough enemies. They're the guys who are going to mess you up. So yeah, that one's obvious. Destructive. Destructive does armor damage, and surprise, surprise, elites and named enemies have a lot of armor, so that's a no-brainer. And lastly, Brutal, which has got headshot damage. Headshot damage is a great boost in this game at the moment. These aren't the only ones that are good, but for damage, basic damage output, if you remember those three, you can't go wrong. Also, you'll probably find that they'll be combined with some kind of survivability perk. My favourite is Predatory. That is very handy for keeping you in the fight. If you're constantly grinding through ads, having 35% health come back to you every time you kill an ad, that is very handy. I also like Meticulous. Yeah, a lot of people don't like Meticulous. I've always found it handy. It just means your ammo stretches a lot further and you reload a lot less. Sometimes when you'll really value it when you're down to your third bullet, the mob dies and suddenly you've got a full mag again. But that's up to you. Meticulous I wouldn't consider essential. Determined, I don't think I have a weapon with Determined, but Determined is another skill that's great. Killing a target reduces your skill cooldowns. That's great for keeping up your self-heal uptime. Self-preserved gives you a trickle of health from crits, could be worse. And Sustained is basically a cheap-ass version of Predatory. It's exactly the same as Predatory, only you only get 6%. Yeah, it'll do. It's not bad. But primarily, the three perks that you want to see on a gun are Ferocious, Destructive, and Brutal. There's some other marksman talents which are kind of nice. Balanced is worth a quick demonstration. I brought this gun just in case. The weapon reaches max accuracy faster when shouldering. I don't normally run with marksman rifles, but I'll give you a quick demonstration because this is a very good perk. One of the problems with marksman rifles is you're in a gunfight and every time you pop up you have to wait for that reticule to focus down before you can shoot. Balanced, as you can see, is making this virtually instantaneous. Now if I put on a weapon that doesn't have balance, like this one, you'll see the difference. That doesn't look like that much of a difference now, but I absolutely guarantee you'll notice this difference when you're hiding behind a fucking plant pot and there's 3 elites shooting at your head. That extra little time it took to focus the weapon can mean that you start to get shot at and have to duck back before you can get an accurate shot off, or before you can get a shot off at all. So balanced is wonderful. Toxic and Harmful are also not bad for marksman rifles, but similarly with marksman rifles, the other damage perks are great too. There's a couple of weapon specific talents, Uncomplicated on a FAMAS for example. They're self-explanatory. I would just say that while you're leveling up, avoid overly conditional talents that require like plus or minus a certain amount of health bars or distance or range. A lot of these perks have a time and a place. A lot of them are extremely good in PvP. For example, having a massive burst of DPS when you're on low health is really handy in a PvP exchange. But for PvE, you shouldn't be rocking perks that require you to be in a lot of trouble for them to actually activate.
God, I can't believe it.
So yeah, I wouldn't bother with those for the time being. Also, is it elevated? There's this new perk out, elevated, for marksman rifles, plus 10% damage if you're more than 1 meter off the ground. People say, oh yeah, it's great, you can get extra damage and all you have to do is stand on top of a car. Well, have you ever seen a police sniper standing on top of a squad car to take a shot? Fuck no. They might as well rename this perk plus 10% damage by standing out in the open on a fucking car where everyone can see you and shoot you in the balls. It's nonsense. I personally would just avoid that one like the fucking plague. And lastly, understand, sometimes you are unfortunately going to get a great gun. You're going to look at it and you're going to think, oh, it's fantastic. And then you'll look at the weapon talents, and there'll be conditions on it like 6,000 electronics. Forget about it. There's no point twisting your entire build to make that work. A Caduceus is a classic example. It's a named weapon. It might drop for you and you'll think that all your Christmases have come at once, but you'll notice that the talents are fairly shit and they require a lot of electronics to actually make them work, activate. Put it in your bank, keep it for another day, keep it to look at it from time to time and go, hey look, I've got a Caduceus, but Jesus Lord, don't bother using it, it's all waste of time. Certainly with the build we're going for. Right. Mods. Primary stat mods are, this is the stuff you put on your gear. You have firearms, stamina and electronics. There is one type of mod that you go for. You go for firearms with armor, or stamina with armor, or electronics with armor. Can you see a theme developing here? The stat plus armor, all the fucking way. This is kind of a broken aspect of the game, but reaching armor cap is a real priority because you want to take as little damage as possible. So basically, bin the rest. Just go for firearms, electronics and stamina with plus armor, and keep a little supply of them like this. Nothing else is important. The reason you have a selection of them in your bag is as you're swapping gear in and out, you might find that you've got this great thing that you would have put on to get a 4-set bonus, and then suddenly your stamina drops, at which point you can go into your kit, your gear, and you can swap out all your firearms mods for stamina mods and rebalance things. Similarly, you might get a weapon, I might get a weapon that says requires 3,800 electronics. Well, if I can swap out one electronic mod, or maybe two, just to bump it up a little bit to make that weapon awesome and work properly, then I'll take the chance on that. So just keep a little stockpile so you've got some flexibility. Regarding performance mods, there's tons of them. There's rumours there's bugs behind others, and some might work with very specific builds. While you're leveling up, this will do. It's a prototype performance mod, and it gives you between +5 and I believe +6.5 first aid, self-heal. Just stick those on. You don't really overthink it. Just the combination of you might end up with up to 4 of them on your gear. That's perhaps up to 25% extra hit self-heal. That makes a real difference. Don't get clever and tinker with +1% turret duration and +1.5% this, that, or the other. Just stick self-heal ones in there. You can get fancy at level 256 if you've got a specific idea of a build. So, As for weapon mods, I did do a little video about weapon mods, but to put it very simply, just pick the weapon mods that have the fattest, highest roll on the primary stat, as long as it's a damage stat. The exception to that is magazines. Just go for extended mag with high capacity, with a high capacity mag with a high rate of fire. For everything else, just pick one that's massive headshot damage, fantastic. Bad example, I'm running Alpha Bridge, but you know, crit damage say might be there, and this is headshot damage. Just as long as it's a primary damage stat, then it's good to go. So you'll be swapping bits of gear in and out all the time. It's a great learning process as you start to examine gear and start to pick out what's good and start to work on, you know, becoming a, you know, you're becoming a much stronger character, and whilst balancing your firearms and your stamina. But don't overthink it before you get to 256. You'll be swapping bits of gear in and out all the time, you know, and selling them to the vendor. You know, you'll just got to accept the fact that all non-256 gear is going to get binned. And when I say binned, I mean sold. You just want to focus on keeping firearms and stamina in this proportion, making a good 4-set bonus, getting a couple of good pieces elsewhere or a good 2-set bonus, and try and pick up at least one example of every weapon, one good example of every weapon. I say this because they all use different types of ammunition and they've got different roles, and you might find you love a certain style. I mean, I before Alpha Bridge I used to love an assault rifle with a shotgun as my secondary, because if I got rushed down, I could pull out the shotgun and do very high damage at close range. When the shit was hitting the fan and some shotgunner was running me down, I could pull out my shotgun and shoot him in the face. You'll find your own combos that you really like to roll with. That's part of the fun of it. But like I said, don't get too obsessed, don't overthink it with any gear prior to 256, because you're going to sell that shit to the vendor, and you're going to sell it to that vendor so that you make money. Now, when you get to about 2 million cash, I would suggest then go and start buying the basic caches from the vendor guy in the base of operations. Those things will come with one high-end item and some Phoenix credits, which are the rare money. So I hope this helps. Let me know in the comments if it does, or if you have any problems. Anyway, it's time to stop listening to this shit, get out there and start killing. If this was useful in any way, please do me a solid and click the thumbs up or subscribe. It would really help out the channel, and let's face it, those strippers aren't going to pay for themselves. Good luck and happy hunting.